is West Sussex, one of the very first parts of Britain to be Romanised. And it's amazing how little some things have changed here over the past 2,000 years. There's still the agriculture, the rolling hills, and of course the A29, or as the Romans would have known it, Stane Street, the main road between Chichester and London. What has disappeared, though, is the thriving Roman settlement which would have once flanked this road, including a mansio, a Roman hotel used by the empire's officials as they travelled the country. And yet we know almost nothing about mansios or how they fitted into the wider landscape. This is a rare opportunity to shed some light on a little-known aspect of Roman life in Britain. But we'll have our work cut out. This whole site is over half a kilometre long with 300 years of Roman activity. And of course, we've got just 3 days to find out.
There's a hell of a lot of this hypercourse tile around here.
It is amazing. It's just diddled with it. It's absolutely everywhere.
As soon as you walk onto this field, you know there was something big, important and Roman here. The ground's littered with box tile, roof tile, high-status pottery and countless other classic examples of Roman occupation. It's no wonder that over the last century this site has been surveyed, field-walked and written about many times. But it's only been dug once, in the 1920s, when an amateur archaeologist called Samuel Winbolt identified it as the site of a station, an official complex of buildings used by the great and the good as they journeyed up and down the country. So what have we got? Is it a station? Is it a mansio? I always thought they were the same thing.
Winbolt christened it a station, but I think he had in mind like a police station, a place where some Roman troops or Roman soldiers were stationed with hostile natives outside. Today we'd probably say, well, no, it's more to do with a mansio or a hotel. So kind of a cross between a motorway service station with medical coaching in.
But the whole country's crossed with Roman roads, so presumably there were lots of these hotel things by the side of them. Don't we know everything that we need to know about them?
Would that were true, Tony. I mean, the problem is when we look at Roman Britain is that we understand the forts, we understand tribal towns, we've done a lot of work on Roman villas, but we know diddly squat really about what a mansio is. All we can really say here is this looks like an important site. It's got double ditches, a large enclosure, a massive area of settlement, but we just don't really understand anything about it.
So everything to play for?
Absolutely.
The mansio's the obvious first target for GeoPhys, but we've got a small problem. John's results are awash with potential targets.
Look at all these responses. The problem is there's so much going on, we can't actually see the detail of the buildings that were excavated.
Yeah, I mean, here's Winbolt's plan, and this is what he calls his officers' quarters. This is what we think is the mansio. He thinks that's a wall, he thinks that's a tessellated floor and mosaic. I guess the question, we've got to find where it is.
Well, that's it. I mean, if we can't rely on the geophysics to find it, well, we can't. You've admitted that. The only way to resolve it is literally to dig it.
So our first trench will try to relocate this 1920s dig. We may disagree with Winbolt about his description of the mansio as an officer's quarters, but this classics teacher was a very good archaeologist for his time, and locking his results into the landscape and re-evaluating his work will give us a great start.
Ah! Oh, what's that?
What is it?
That's the trouble. We don't know what the quality of the floor was that Winbolt said he found. I mean, if it was a nice floor, or whether it was just these broken up bits of tile.
But the archaeologists have also identified a second target. Winbolt's records describe the mansio as being surrounded by massive enclosure ditches. And Neil's keen to investigate these as soon as possible, because when it comes to getting dates for a site, ditches are an archaeologist's best friend. Hey John, have you seen this plan this bloke drew in the 20s? He's got a huge ditch round here. You haven't come across anything like that in your geophys, have you? Oh, yeah. Yes, you have.
So look, there's the bank and ditch, the river at the top behind us.
Why not put another trench in here across the ditch? Let's see what dating's coming out of that.
Well, we can tell you exactly where to go on that.
So trench 2 goes in over the ditches.
Okay, Ian, let's just take it off nice and easy, mate.
Although why anyone would want to dig 2 huge ditches to cut off a hotel from its surroundings is a mystery to me. Back in trench 1, Phil thinks he may have just found the Mancio, or at least one of its wall foundations cut into the bedrock.
I mean, I wonder, as a first starter for 10, whether this isn't actually going to be the natural bedrock. In which case, our building, and I think we can start to talk about a building because there's just so much demolition rubble, there's all tile, bits of tiles and what have you. That's in there. The other thing I like about it, that edge, look at it, it's exactly at 90 degrees to the Roman road.
Yeah.
I like the look of that.
But it's a bit early to break out the champagne. We may have our first piece of Mancio, but we don't know what piece it is or how it might help John decipher his abundant geophys results. To be honest, we don't even know which part of Windbolt's excavation this is. Only time and a lot more digging will tell how this small wall line fits into the bigger picture of Roman Alfoldine, a settlement that stretched along both sides of Stane Street. A lot of what we know on this site comes from this rather serious-looking archaeological tome, which was originally written by someone who was once the Young Archaeologist of the Year. Time goes by so fast, doesn't it, Mike?
Yes, I've changed a bit in those times, yes, definitely.
You've dug in so many different places, but your heart's still here.
It is. I used to cycle 40 kilometres to come here when I was a schoolboy, so it really does hold something for me, this site.
What was it that attracted you about this place?
I think it was just that there was so much evidence. You could look in the fields and you'd see artefacts visible in the ploughed fields, and also this roadside ditch.
What's so significant about the ditch?
Well, the ditch was important because within it you could see pits and ditches and halves of the Roman period, suggesting that Roman settlement to the south of the river continued for about 600 metres, which is far more than was previously thought.
This site belongs to you more than anybody else in the world. We've only got 3 days here, but what would you like to be able to take away with you?
I'd like to take away a plan showing the settlement to the south of the enclosure. So to get a plan of that showing the property plots would be fantastic.
Mike entered his study of Alfoldine into the competition the same year as an entry from another young archaeologist, a 13-year-old hopeful called Miles Russell. Mike won, while Miles didn't even make the shortlist.
But we haven't got the verge on this side at all. We might get the...
Thankfully, time is a great healer.
I mean, field walking evidence, there are pottery concentrations in that field, but they do seem to increase going further south.
Going up slope?
Going up slope, yeah.
And that will mean more geophys. A lot more geophys.
Ah, now we're talking.
Is this the natural ear then, this stuff?
That's it. So that's the outside of the site. So we now know where we are.
Over in Trench 2, Rakshar and Matt have located the Mancio's enclosure ditches, or at least one of the ditches. Well, to be more precise, they found one side of one ditch. Why have you extended this?
Well, because we couldn't find an edge. You see, we thought the edge of the ditch was going to be about here, Tony.
Hang on, let's have a look over here. So this is...
See how soft that is? That's really soft, isn't it?
Yeah, let me get my trowel into that, no problem.
Yeah.
So this is fill. We're on top of a ditch here, and we couldn't find the edge of the ditch where we thought it should be.
It's that?
Absolutely.
It is this?
Yeah. So this is the actual natural undisturbed bedrock.
Yeah.
So we can work our way back the trench that way.
The problem is, the geophys results suggest that each ditch is at least 4 metres wide and possibly up to 4 metres deep. We'll be lucky to get to the bottom of them by the end of day 3. The size of these ditches and the half-kilometre of settlement geophys are now investigating shows Alfoldine was a major focus of Roman activity in West Sussex. And to try and find out what was so appealing about this little part of southern England, Helen has volunteered for her first time team chopper ride.
Look at that. It's really like magic, isn't it? It's amazing. Look at Stane Street, it's so long and so straight, isn't it?
It's a classic example of Roman military engineering, isn't it? Crashing its way straight across the countryside.
It's absolutely perfect. So why do you think our site is where it is?
Well, I think it is all about location, because you've got the really strong, straight Stane Street and crossing with the River Arun. So you've got this point in the landscape where you've got two major routes cross, and where you get that, then that's a prime location to establish a settlement.
So it's all about control.
I think it is. As you can see, you're at the centre of this huge landscape which is full of natural resources. You've got woodland, you've got clay to make tiles and pottery and bricks. Not more than about 2 miles from here, you've got a local source of iron ore. You've got everything you need in a way to sustain an industrial economy.
Back on the ground, we're finally rediscovering Wimbolt's 1920s excavation in Trench 1.
You've got pink plaster on top of tiles, on top of green clay.
What that would mean then is that this is actually the base of one of these concrete floors. You know, Opus Signanum with the pink plaster, the pink and the red brick.
Oh, now look at that, Neil. Now that is superb painted wall plaster in it, and that a gorgeous piece.
It's great, isn't it? You've got the light blue, and you can almost see the brush marks and that dark blue stripe, can't you?
Is a room with a wall painted like this the sort of room you'd expect in a mansion?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're going to expect fairly high quality accommodation in some parts at least, because, you know, you've got important people coming down this road. You know, it's not just your average B&B, so we can expect some pretty lavish rooms.
This plaster gives an idea of just how posh parts of this hotel might be. But then again, if you're on government business, you expect the best.
So what are they actually for? Are they just places for officials to stay the night?
Well, we have this thing in Roman Britain called the cursus publicus, which is really administrators journeying along these major routes, administering taxation, local economy, their justice, or whatever it happens to be. They may stay for one night or for a few days.
And then move on?
And then move on. And they're staged along the main routes. And along Stane Street, we have Hardham to the south, and we have Alpha Dean here. And these may be two of those staging posts along the route between Chichester and London.
So is that why ours is defended? Because it would have been full of unpopular tax collectors who the natives didn't like?
It may well be for the tax collectors, but we've got to bear in mind the fact that this whole sort of area, Sussex, Surrey and the whole of the south east, is one of the first bits of Britain to be Romanised. So it's not a case of sort of angry natives in and around the area of Alfoldine waiting to attack it. But I think we're sort of looking at it from a slightly wrong angle, because rather than thinking these are defended forts, these are points where resources are being protected. If you've got one or two members of the military here, they've got a nice defined area within which taxes, within which foodstuffs, within which perhaps new recruits are contained on their way towards London.
Well, whatever it was, the Romans certainly went to a lot of effort to protect it. About 11 o'clock this morning, Neil decided to put a tiny little discreet trench in here to see if he could find the ditch which would have once gone round the Mansio. But he couldn't see it, so he extended the trench, then he extended it again, then you extended it again and again. Was all this work really necessary?
Oh, totally, Tony. Look, here is the ditch.
Hooray!
Look, it's very soft fill, very black, full of fines. Now, just behind Ratcher, we get a change. Ratcher, can you just point out where we see the change in the earth?
Yeah, this is the lighter colour. The ditch is actually cutting into this. It's going down that way.
So one edge of the ditch there, and another ditch just there.
Where does that go to?
Well, who knows? I mean, perhaps over about as far as here.
So we're going to extend back to here as well?
We'll see how time goes, but come this way, Tony, because this is really interesting. So think one ditch, think two ditches.
Yeah.
And then look, here we have, look at, very different. Yellowy clay. This must be the rampart bank inside the two outer ditches. So we should now be on the inside of the enclosure.
Hold on, if we've got all these ditches, and we can see from this plan that the ditches were huge, they went all the way out into this field, this would have been a massive undertaking to dig it.
I mean, it's not just one guy in his wheelbarrow, is it? You know, it's a really big endeavour, and what it shows is that they must have taken a lot of effort to enclose that building. It shows that building is important and it needed to be defended.
We really have set ourselves a challenge and a half. Goodness knows how long it'll take to get to the bottom of this ditch trench. And we haven't even started on the 600 plus metres of settlement. Never mind the Mancio, probably a full-time team by itself. Time to sort out our priorities. Phil, I guess the big news is after 13 years of time team, you've finally got a new hat.
I know, well the other one had got so rancid it needed it, but I decided to celebrate with some good archaeology, and we've got some cracking archaeology. Look, in this trench we've got this wonderful floor, which for the first time in this trench means we've got intact archaeology.
Do you reckon this looks classy enough to be the officers' quarters?
Well, it's what Wimble called the officers' quarters, but forget the officers' quarters. You know, he's living in a fantasy world. This is part of the Mancio. This must be part of what he referred to as the pink corridor. So we know more or less where we are, but tomorrow the real challenge is going to actually work out the exact plan of the Mancio, because that will be a real achievement.
John, you've been geophysics over there, haven't you?
Yeah, looking for the settlement outside, and look, we've got it. You can see these clear ditches, these very strong pits. But look at these responses here, right along the edge of the road. I'd just love to think that those might be mausolea.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that is potentially an extremely exciting feature there, that sort of circularity. I mean, that could be a hut circle, that could be a mausoleum, that could be a big pile of pants. We don't know until we dig into it, but it's an obvious target for first thing tomorrow.
I mean, a trench in there as well will tell us one important thing, won't it? Are these buildings earlier than this enclosure, or are they contemporary with it?
So we've got a fantastic site here that's jam-packed full of goodies. We've got a possible mausoleum, we've got a brand new hat. Do things get better than that? I don't think so. Beginning of day 2 here in West Sussex, and yesterday, where that digger is over there, we found what we think is a Mancio, which is a Roman service station or coaching house. And at some time or other, it was cut off from the rest of the site by some huge ditches over there by that digger. Why did they do that? Well, we don't know, but in order to understand what was going on there, we need to understand more about this area here. And yesterday, Mike, you said that your ambition was to see a plan of the whole of the Roman site. That's where John's got to so far.
Yeah, it's looking good. It's showing the enclosures continuing to the south of the Mancio.
So where about where?
We're about here.
Yesterday evening, you got very excited by this little circle thing here. You said you thought it might be a mausoleum somewhere where the Romans buried their dead.
It'd be nice, wouldn't it? It's in the right sort of place, right next to the road as it goes into the posting stations. We've got this big circular feature, and that's exactly where you'd expect a big monumental burial to be.
So what do we do with it, Bridge?
Well, I've got the super duper enlarged version here of your plan. We're going to stick a trench across it at a diagonal. We'll pick up that ditch there, and we'll pick up these anomalies in the middle that indicate that they might be burning, and they could be typical of cremations. Away you go, Ian!
The archaeologists suspect that this whole site may once have been a single big Roman settlement before the ditches were dug to cut off the Mancio. But getting that crucial dating evidence from the ditch trench is turning into a bit of a nightmare. We just don't know if we can afford the manpower to dig down to the bottom of these massive defences. And over at the Mancio trench, we now face a number of challenges. For example, unpicking the remains of a 1920s dig by local archaeologist Samuel Winbold. But perhaps more crucially, working out what our Mancio may look like. Whenever I've asked any of you three about Mancios, you've always said, oh, it's like a travel lodge or a hotel or a service station. But that doesn't really help me picture what was going on there in Roman times, does it?
Well, think of a Roman motel. You know, what are you going to have? You want rooms, don't you? I mean, Victor's drawn a kind of a plan here, a drawing, based on another Mancio that's been excavated. So imagine you bring your horse in, you dismount, you want to get rid of your horse to the stables, come in here, change your clothes, go through to the bathhouse, have a nice wash, come back, have something to eat, and then go to sleep. So, you know, this kind of typical courtyard building is quite usual.
Mark, you probably know more about Mancios than anybody else I know. Can you work out what bit of the Mancio we've got in Phil's trench?
It's very difficult to gauge, to be honest, at this stage. There are certainly hints of substantial structures, and I suspect we may be close to one end of the wing, perhaps, where you've got the bathhouse.
But because there's a but here, isn't there? You know, this is not our building. This is based on another site. There isn't a single blueprint to a Mancio. They're not always this size. Some can be much bigger, some can be quite small, and some don't even have the courtyard. Yeah. Some can just always be like a corridor. So unfortunately, we can't just say, okay, we're digging here, we've got that wall, and we can immediately reconstruct the rest of the building. Now, the problem we have is that in Phil's trench, Wimbolt has dug very deeply in there. I think he's actually destroyed most of the archaeology in that trench.
So we're closing down this trench and opening one in an area not investigated by Wimbolt.
So actually, the thought is, have we got a range of rooms coming round with a courtyard in the middle? You see that? Yeah. So
John believes that with the eye of faith, he can see a pretty substantial building, possibly even with a courtyard.
John?
And within minutes, the archaeology seems to back up his theory.
Is this the sort of thing that you might have picked up on this brick?
Yeah, I think there should be a cut feature through here.
Yeah, well then that's reflected by this brick and tile, is it?
Yeah.
It seems like we are on the spot then.
And things are also looking up in the understaffed ditch trench.
We still haven't got to the bottom of them, and hopefully you'll be able to help us with those.
We've now got a virtually limitless supply of extra diggers from a local college, Christ's Hospital. This also just happens to be the school where our 1920s archaeologist Samuel Wimbolt taught, and his legacy looms large here. A lot of these sixth formers are actually studying archaeology.
You start from this end, you see this yellow here, you don't want to hit the yellow, so just keep taking this back a bit, like that. Where we go?
So in return for some practical experience in trench digging, we're now confident we can get to the bottom of these ditches by the end of day 3. Hopefully. These massive ditches didn't enclose just the Mancio, but a whole complex of buildings that would have served Roman officials and traders as they travelled the country. Horses were the main form of transport, so one of the key facilities here would have been the blacksmiths. And among his many jobs would have been the manufacture of what's believed to be the precursor of the modern horseshoe, the hippo sandal.
Although I've seen pictures of these many times in books, I've actually never seen a real one, so I'm really interested in how it's going to look.
Luckily, I managed to get up to the British Museum last week, and we actually managed to get up close and personal with some, so I could come and make some today.
So how are you going to start making them?
Well, I'm going to take a plate, I've got to forge it down into this nice triangular shape, and then turn a loop on the front. And then the wings on the side, we're going to have to form those and then weld them on top and bottom. And try and come down on top of it rather than coming back towards it.
This design is based on various archaeological finds, but surprisingly, no one's ever tried the theory out on a real live horse.
Get in there, come on. That's it, that's the one.
So we're using Christ Hospital's fully equipped school forge, yes, school forge, to test how practical this hippo sandal is. Oh, and we will be using a real live horse. Back at the trench in the settlement, Miles has now found the source of his geophysical anomaly. The problem is, it's not quite as straightforwardly Roman as we'd hoped for. Is it a Muslim?
No, I don't think so, but I think if you bear in mind this morning I said it could be a roundhouse or a mausoleum. I'm tending to veer slightly more towards the roundhouse interpretation.
Because?
Well, because we've got here this big sort of area of burning. You can see all these stones with charcoal and baked clay around it. And that seems to be at the centre of John's geophysical circularity. So I tend to think of it more as being a roundhouse with a central half.
I mean, that's Iron Age, isn't it? That's before the Romans even get here.
Well, yes, but I mean, the population aren't going to suddenly become Roman and start building square, rectangular buildings. Roundhouses, Iron Age structures are probably going to continue for some time.
So basically, you're telling me that you found a bunch of burnt stones?
Yes, but it's a very interesting bunch of burnt stones.
While Miles ponders the future of his trench, we've now analysed the finds from Phil's first trench over the Mancio, and we think we now know what was going on there.
We've got structural components, These are pieces of box flue tile that certainly indicate a heated room. But I think we can also, from that, say that there is certainly at least one bath.
Wow, that's
because
brilliant.
we've got the pieces here of opus signinum.
That's that kind of concrete floor.
Yeah, of
stuff.
waterproof stuff,
Yeah.
and it's often found lining baths, plunge baths.
And is this one decorated?
No, it's actually limescale.
Wow, actually from the bath water.
Yes.
Oh, they should have cleaned their bath more often.
It may be one rather poorly maintained plunge pool, but it places the Mansio's bathhouse here to the northwest of the complex. Phil, is this trench easier to understand than what was going on there?
Oh, this is an absolute dream. I mean,
And thanks to Phil's new trench, John's theory that this is a pretty sizable Mansio, possibly with 3 ranges, is now looking very promising.
in here we think we're probably into a courtyard, so that this whole area is the actual courtyard of the site. And then looks like there's probably going to be a wall line somewhere through here. And then you pass through here into a corridor, which you can see looks like we've got tesserae on it, so that it may actually have had a mosaic floor. Then you go through from the corridor into a series of rooms, and we've got a wall line here.
Oh, I can see that quite clearly, yeah.
And you can see the return of it going across there. But as you go through the room, you find that here, in fact, we've got another wall line.
Oh, yeah.
Coming through there. So it actually gives us 1, 2, 3 sides of the wall, and here we've actually got the 4th side.
I think what's great about this trench now is in the last one we just talked about depths of archaeology. Now we're talking about plan of archaeology. We can understand the plan.
That's right.
Plenty more work this afternoon then.
You bet.
Or not. Just as we prepare for a manic afternoon of trenching, the heavens open and the clear wall lines of the Mansio and the obvious circularity of the circular feature disappear under a sea of muddy clay. Phil, we've dug in much worse weather than this, and even when everyone else has packed up, we've had to prise you out of the trench. So how come you've stopped?
It's so simple, it's a geology.
What do you mean?
Well, this ground here has just got so much clay in it that as soon as it starts to rain, it just puddles up. There's just no way it's going to drain away.
It's the archaeology that comes first here, and if we actually start to work this site, we're actually going to destroy the archaeology.
So what do we do?
We simply have to wait. I mean, and it's not just a matter of waiting until the rain stops. We've got to wait until the water in the site drains away.
So we're now all playing a waiting game. Well, almost all of us, because when the going gets tough, the tough get geophysics.
That's a really strangely beautiful object, isn't it? Can I
Yeah,
have a
feel
look?
free, yeah.
Thanks.
It's a bit heavy.
Oh gosh, it is heavy. It's a really
Thankfully, our archaeological experiment hasn't been affected by the downpour, and we can finally see if our alleged Roman horseshoe is up to the job.
We could be the first people for some centuries to actually be looking at a horse's hoof in a hippo sand.
Yeah, I think we probably are, but it's just trying to decide that whether this is the right way to tie it on or not.
Ooh.
Well,
He thinks it's strange, doesn't he?
he thinks it's strange.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether you'd want to work a horse for any long distance with these on. You certainly wouldn't be able to pull a load with that if you were trying to pull a wagon. I think that'll do there, John, actually. I think that's enough. I think turning is going to be difficult with those spikes out the front.
yeah.
He's going to try and stab himself with those on a regular basis. I certainly wouldn't want to ask him to trot with them on.
No. But then if they're not for heavy loads and they're not for long distances on metalled roads, what are they for?
Well, the only other thing that I can think of is that they would have been used for a veterinary type purpose if they've damaged the bottom of the foot. To hold something in, like a brown poultice to draw out infections, would have been ideal for holding something like that in.
Well, it might not have been the result we expected, but it does show that sometimes it pays to put theory into practice. Back on site, we've hatched a plan to buy us a few extra hours digging on this rain-sodden site. We're going to cover Phil's trench with this tent. and use a digger to expose clean, dry archaeology in Miles's trench. Unfortunately, the conditions in the ditch trench make it too dangerous to dig, so at most we've only one more day to get to the bottom of it. But although we still don't have a date for these defences, Stuart thinks he now knows why they were constructed.
This is about control. If you want to go up and down this road, you have to go in one gate, out the other gate and over a bridge. It's about Roman imperial taxation. It was a way of easily generating revenue to support the army. In fact, I'm just quoting from some original sources here where regulations for taxes per capita. For each slave, 1.5 denarius, for a horse, mare, jackass, mule, donkey, ox, half a denarius, and so on. If it moved, they taxed it. I mean, you've got to think here of why would they want to do that here. And one thing we've discovered is that there's lots of iron in this area. And iron is, in effect, in the Roman period, it's a controlled substance. It's controlled by the military, its movement, so it doesn't fall into hostile hands. And therefore, once it's controlled by the military, then you get the military stamp, which is the building of ramparts and ditches and all that sort of thing. And in effect, those defensive earthworks are it's like a big bonded warehouse, if you can put it like that.
What did you say you were young archaeologist of the year 1981?
1981.
It's almost the end of day 2. And while we've managed to get some work done in a couple of the trenches, to be honest, the rain has completely scuppered our plans.
Bridget, what have you done with the circularity?
It seems to have disappeared altogether.
Yeah.
When the machine is clearing back, we'll be able to see the features very clearly. But of course now we've got rain again, water starts pooling, and it just is phasing it out again. And you can see these guys out here working in it. We've got to get them out because it's just too wet and claggy.
Churning everything up, aren't they? Yeah, I think we ought to call it a day.
But it's not completely doom and gloom. Geophys have gallantly continued to survey this large waterlogged site, and John thinks a clear picture of Alfoldine's development is beginning to emerge. But it's getting late, so time to swap the cold, wet misery of the site for the cold, wet comfort of a pint. It was a frustrating afternoon.
Oh, very frustrating. This morning was going so well, and I thought, yeah, we can now see the walls. It can match it to John's geophysics. We're actually getting a plan of the Mancio. We got the site on the run, but yeah, we've been held up for sure.
How was it for you, John?
Well, we've had a fantastic day. I mean, look, Claire and Fee have done wonders. They've surveyed about 3 hectares today, and we've got the settlement we wanted. Look, we've extended the survey some 300, 400 metres beyond the main complex. There's a whole series of ditches and these large pits and then trackways coming round. I mean, it looks a bit irregular though. I think it's probably Iron Age rather than actually Roman. It's then developed.
I mean, what it looks to me, Tony, is like we've got a native indigenous village, and look what happens. The Roman government puts a road right through the middle of it, and later that says, yeah, what a great spot for a hotel. And even later then says, let's put a bank and ditch right round the outside.
Yeah, all right, but that's a theory, isn't it? How do we ascertain whether or not this settlement is actually earlier than the Mancio?
Well, you know what I'm going to say, don't
You're
you?
going to put a trench in, aren't you?
What do you think, John?
Well, I think if we take one of these strong anomalies that I think is probably a pit, and then we'll hopefully get some dating evidence.
Yeah, and we can compare pottery from that with material from the ditch, from the bank, and from the Mancio. To build up a picture of how this site developed over time.
Are we actually going to be able to get inside the Mancio?
Oh, for sure. By tomorrow night, we'll know what a Roman bedroom in a hotel looks like.
A Roman hotel bedroom by tomorrow. Unless, of course, it continues raining, in which case we just have to spend the whole day in here.
If there's a good archaeological reason.
Beginning of day 3 here in West Sussex on the A29, what the Romans used to call Stane Street. And yesterday we thought we'd found the Roman Mancio or roadhouse. And then at lunchtime the skies opened and the archaeology was washed out. Well, as you can see, it's another day. The rain stopped, but the mud's still here. So the question is, can we still dig? And the answer is a resounding yes. The first target is the new trench pinpointed by John. This is a good 400 metres from the Mancio, but if we can get good dating evidence from this part of the settlement, it should help us with the overall story of the site.
Is that a point?
That's the point, yep.
Well, you can tell from the size alone it's going to be 1st or 2nd century. It's
Got it out of the bag yet?
Come on, ye of little faith. Let's have a look.
Almost nothing
well,
there.
actually, you can actually see there's a head, and it's quite prominent actually
Yeah,
in
it's quite
relief.
lumpy.
And I would put money on that being either Vespasian or his son Titus between sort of 70, 80 AD.
Well-
Not a word out of you.
I'll believe you.
Thank you.
The coin's date of around 70 AD suggests this part of the settlement was here around the time Stane Street was built. Geophys have played a bit of a blinder on a difficult and soaked site. As well as revealing the plan of the settlement, their results inside the enclosure are combining with the archaeology to uncover a rather impressive building.
Phil, your tent's kept you pretty dry, but how's it going in there?
Well, I'm going down into the foundations, but look at the depths of it. I mean, surely a foundation that deep, you could be looking at a 2-storey building, I'd have thought.
This building is getting bigger by the minute. We've now established the Mancio had a bathhouse here and consisted of at least 3 ranges, each of which could be 2 stories high. We're pretty confident we've got a long range of buildings going in this direction, and out here I step into a courtyard. But is it an interior courtyard with other buildings beyond it, or is this the whole extent of the complex? How do we work that out?
Well, let's have a look at the geophysics. I mean, here's the ranger room where Phil's investigating. That's very clear. Round here looks like more rooms and perhaps another range there. But I'd like to prove it. I mean, this could be something else. It's very noisy on the geophysics.
Yeah.
So maybe a small trench, I don't know, 2 by 2. And I would think maybe there, because that looks like the clearest area. Just literally pick up the wall line and we've cracked it.
The more we dig, the clearer this mass of geophysical information becomes. A part that is from Miles's trench and his intriguing circularity. Over the past 3 days, it's been a mausoleum, a Romano-British roundhouse, and then he lost it completely.
Miles, is it still here?
It's come back again. My circularity has returned. We've got what looks like the circular gully swinging right the way around the trench. So I still like the idea of that being a half, that sort of burning area in the middle, and this being a circular all around it.
But it's all Roman.
Yeah, it's all Romano-British.
So it looks like Miles's early suspicions were right. This is a Romano-British roundhouse built by the locals and part of the original settlement that was here when the Mancio was built. But this trench refuses to be straightforward.
There's a complicating factor in that just outside that circular feature, Ian's found a series of other pits. What have you got down there, Ian?
I've got a broken, but it appears to be fairly complete pot, just there.
What's just the outline?
God, I can see that, yeah. So that's the whole diameter of it, isn't it, there?
It looks like most of the pot. I mean, that's the fabric.
And you've got that sort of New Forest indented beaker.
I mean, that's useful, isn't it? Because that probably is going to be sort of 3rd century AD. So again, it shows the activity here outside the enclosure is contemporary with what's going on inside the enclosure. It's not earlier, it's contemporary.
We're also at last getting near to a story for the ditches that were at some point dug to separate and, we presume, protect the Mancio from the rest of the settlement.
Yeah, here it is. You can see this huge, thick, yellow clay of the rampart.
Yeah.
You can see this brown stuff here.
Yeah.
That's an earlier ground surface, and the rampart has been slapped straight on top of it.
Yeah, and this is the stuff that's coming from under the rampart.
This is the stuff that's been sealed by the bank.
It's just what we've been wanting.
This is a classic piece of archaeological dating. Because when these ditches were dug into the clay, the spoil was used to build a large rampart, sealing any finds on the ground surface underneath.
What we've got here is a shallow platter and this cordon vessel, and I think we're looking at a sort of late 1st century AD group of pottery here.
Right, so pretty early.
Yeah.
Early then.
Yeah.
So we now know the defences were constructed around 90 AD, when the settlement was already here. We can also get a date for how long they lasted, because it appears once these ditches outlived their usefulness, they were filled in with a mixture of earth and rubbish which we can date.
There's
ton of pottery, which
Yeah,
is
it's very
fantastic.
interesting actually because it's all fairly consistent. It looks as if it's going to fall into the end of the 2nd century and into the early 3rd. Certainly nothing later than the middle of the 3rd century. So it's quite a tight group for dating, I think.
It looks like these defences dominated this landscape for the best part of 150 years. But the enclosure's only part of the story, and Geophys have now completed their exhaustive survey of Roman Alfoldine, much to the delight of one long-time fan of the site, Mike Luke.
Mike, you've been looking at this place for 25 years. What does it feel like to see a plan of it for the very first time?
It's brilliant to see a plan of the settlement adjacent to the road. That's fantastic.
And look, on the far side of the road, we've got a whole series of large pits, but we've also extended down below towards the river in that direction.
Excellent.
The ditches are continuing, the pits are continuing, track right here.
What's unusual and what we hadn't expected is that the settlement actually seems to be far bigger than we thought. It seems to be continuing down to the river, and also we don't know how far it goes to the south.
It's amazing that you can get all this without even digging a single
Without
hole,
digging,
really.
no. Geophysics has really come up trumps. It's fabulous.
We think the story goes like this. There was a settlement here by the time the Romans built the defences around the Mansio in about 90 AD. This newly fortified complex then acted as a customs point, taxing travellers along Stane Street, as well as providing secure storage for iron shipments from local quarries. And so Alfoldine continued to prosper throughout the 2nd and early 3rd centuries. But then the whole site ceased activity. And Neil now believes he knows the reason for Alfoldine's demise.
You know this is about tax collection, don't you, this site?
Yeah.
And about iron. Well, in the middle of the 3rd century AD, the Weald ceased to be an important centre of iron production, and production shifted to the west of England to the Forest of Dean. So hey, guess what happens? Just as the iron industry goes down the tubes, this site falls out of use, and the governmental tax collectors head off to Gloucestershire.
It would seem the whole of Alfoldine was reliant on the Mansio complex, because when the taxmen left, so did the rest of the settlement. But there's a last surprising twist to this story in Miles's Trench, where Ian's uncovered this almost intact 3rd century beaker.
Was this down there with it, this bit of glass?
Yeah, it was down off the bottom of the ditch here.
Because that's from one of these big square bottles,
Oh,
probably made in the Rhineland, round Cologne in the 2nd century. It's just that they're often used as cinerary urns to take cremation burials. And with a complete pot crushed in on itself, I wonder if there might have been a disturbed burial here.
Well, it's possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
We now believe that the Romano-British roundhouse that once stood here was abandoned when the Mansio's defensive ditches cut through its plot. But the leftover land still had its uses and became the ideal location for Roman burials, being beside a major road and just outside a fortified Roman complex. Back inside the enclosure, our final trench has deciphered another piece of the complex Mansio geophys.
Kerry went for a bit of keyhole surgery here, looking for a very, very easy story and looking for the wall to the Mansio. Have you found it?
Yep, I've got an easy answer. That's your natural, or the floor, and that's your wall.
Have we got a back to the wall?
It is, you can just see the yellow just creeping through on the other side.
Well, that's great, isn't it? Because it now proves the width of the courtyard and proves we've got another range to our Mansio over here, so that's great.
Yep.
This 4th range means we do have a courtyard building, while Phil's trench has now revealed a corridor that surrounded that courtyard.
So it does look as though we got the corridor as we first thought. What we didn't know was that it was going to turn through 90 degrees and go that way.
So this is actually the internal southeast corner of the building.
Exactly.
And the whole of the south range now we can sort of plot from behind us.
Precisely. You're in the corridor, I'm in the courtyard.
We're now getting an idea of just how impressive John's results are. Because with the help of the archaeology, we can filter out much of the noise on his original geophys to give us this. The actual floor plan of the Alfoldine Mansio. An impressive 2-storey coaching inn, complete with its bathhouse. And at the heart of a complex with paddocks, stables, and all the other services a traveller would have expected. and we're now standing in one of the bedrooms. Right, I'm a weary traveller at the end of the day. I've pulled up into the Mansio. What do I get for my money?
You're a very important person, Tony. You would get a room to yourself, I'm sure. Good sized room, in your cum, imagine your bed, perhaps a brazier if it's cold in winter, warm your hands, chest. You could then go out, perhaps have your dinner in the dining room, have a bath, and maybe a few alternative attractions, perhaps a few girls or something like that.
Fantastic. Did everybody get a room on their own?
Almost certainly not. I think it would have depended on your status. I mean, some of these rooms you could easily fit a number of bunk beds in, so you could be literally sleeping with 10 goat herds or something like that.
No, I'm high status.
Sorry, you'll have a single goat herd.
But hey, last night you kept in your wagon or in a tent, so to get to civilization and have a wash must have been good.
And of course, a decent meal. So as a reward for our diggers' hard work, food historian Sally Granger and the pupils from Christ's Hospital have prepared a veritable Roman feast. And among the delights on offer are asparagus quiche, fish balls and freshly cooked hare. Strangely, dormice aren't included.
What is this?
Is this hair?
You don't like hair? Well, I don't know. It all depends how long it's been hanging around.
Not that long, I promise you.
Ooh.
Ah, in a Roman sauce.
Ooh.
You're ready for more?
That is, isn't it?
Oh. Sure, that's different. That is different.
What's that?
I told you it was disgusting.
What's that?
This place lasted 150 years. Imagine how many people must have walked through the doors looking for a good night's sleep and a warm bath and a decent meal. There'd have been Roman soldiers and administrators and tax collectors and British traders all wandering through the rooms, admiring the mosaics, eating their food off the fine Samian ware and charging up their batteries for another day's journey down Stane Street. And quite frankly, after 3 pretty gruelling days in some fairly horrendous weather conditions, all of us will be only too glad to get back to the 21st century version of the Mansio just as soon as we finished our feast.